Now let's take a look at audio outputs. There are a few different outputs that you can set in Radiologik DJ. Above each player here, we have buttons to switch the outputs. There are 3 of them for each player. They can all be set to the same thing, or if you have a mixer where you want to go to dedicated channels, you can have one set to one channel, another set to another channel on the mixer, and so forth. This is all set up in Radiologik DJ's settings on the Audio I/O tab. So these are the 3 outputs. A common misconception is that each player is dedicated to each output, but this isn't true. They're independently set. There are 3 outputs, but each player can use any one of these outputs in any combination. So this might be useful if, for instance, you're going to a mixer that has 3 different channels and you want each channel to be on each player. You would set that up here. So you choose the audio device. Perhaps the mixer has a different audio device for each channel, or perhaps the device is multi-channel, in which case, let's say it has 4 stereo pairs. In that case, you would use the same audio device for all of them, but you would increment up the different stereo pairs, say, for instance, to 3 and 4 for the next player, 5 and 6 for the next player, and set the palette to go to its own channel on the mixer on 7 and 8, for instance. I'll set these back to the regular stereo pairs. The other thing you can do is you can set the balance in case you need to do that. Most people don't need to, but if you need to, the balance can be set right there. And it goes all the way to 15% in each direction, which should be plenty. You get to label what these outputs are as they are displayed on the interface. So for instance, if I just wanted this to say monitor on here and I hit OK, you'll see that button becomes monitor. So you get to name these what you want. So if they're channels on your mixers, for instance, you could actually put the channel numbers or whatever the labels are on your mixer right here on the same labels here. So the palette also gets its own output. We'll look at that in a moment. And then there's an off-air output. So this is a dedicated output that you always want to be off-air. This applies to the pre-listen buttons, the cue button in the palette, the library player, and the track properties player. So let's take a look at that. Let's go over to the palette. Over here on the palette, this will now go to the palette output that we selected. Right now I have duck on, so if I play the sound effect, it's going to pan down the actual audio and set it back up when it's done. But if I put the cue button on, I can listen to this off air in case I want to listen to it ahead of time before playing it over the air. And then in any list where you see tracks that you can select, whether it be program, cue, spot, library, or play history, you can use the track properties. And this player always goes to the off-air output as well. So you could be setting your track properties here, adjusting those, setting the ramp. You can, if you hold down and go through the audio, it actually scrubs the audio. This will all be to the off-air output. And then for each player that isn't playing in the top 3 players, you have a little headphone button here. This is a preview button, so this will be the next track coming up. You want to hear what it sounds like before it plays over the air. Hit that button and it will play through your headphones or however you listen off air. Now, let's say if your mixer actually, you want the off air to go through your mixer and you don't want it to go over the off air here. You can have it so that that pre-listen actually goes out on that mixer channel, and the function of being off air or not would then be handled by the mixer. To do that, turn on the pre-listen button here, and then the cue button. The mixer will know that that player is off air, depending on the mixer, of course, and it will play it off air when you hit that. It will just be going through that mixer's particular channels off air that way. Next thing we can look at is the line in and the line out. We just call this the line function, and it's just a simple pass-through. It's not really meant to control your microphone. It's better to control that a different way. But in a pinch, or if you have some other source of audio that you need to turn on and off with either a hotkey set by the keyboard or whatever, however else you want to have it set, you can do that quickly. And what that does is it passes through the audio. It's this button up here, and I have it set to fade in and fade out when being turned on and off. That setting, if you go back into the settings, is on the general. You can use fades for line in, and that will use the values here for fade down and fade up. We have a few more things in the audio I/O here. One is the meter scale. It's currently set to linear, which is 0 to 100, but I can switch it to logarithmic, and we'll see what that looks like. And then we have use track prep gain normalization, which uses the normalization you set in track prep if you prepped your tracks there. If that isn't present, it will use the sound check values from the music app or whatever third-party app you may have used that set those sound check values. And then lastly, we have register played tracks with the music app when logging the player output. So this will mark tracks played in music or Swinsian if you're using that. It'll increment the play count, and it will set the last played time and date to present. But this only works for tracks that are logged. So if you are using an output that is not logging, it's presumed that you don't want to mark that as played. If it's not going to be in your play history, it ought not be also marked in the music app or Swinsian as being played either. And that's basically it for Audio I/O.